Galloway is a construction manager and consultant, commercial and residential builder, and a certified inspector for all commercial and residential buildings. And now, here is About the House with Troy Galloway.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to About the House. We have a fabulous show today, but hey, let me share a little bit about who we are. This is Troy Galloway, your humble host, and actually most of you have been listening to us for the last few years, but actually, so we are a building engineering company. We do building inspections. We also do a lot of commercial buildings and homes, construction consulting. We do a lot of expert witnessing for construction issues. So if you ever need any issues or any of that, just give us a call. But I won't want to really spend too much time on me because so many of us already know who I am over the years of doing this. But I got a guest on here, folks. I've been talking about this. I've been having people ask me about this. I remember even talking to other architects and engineers that had no idea what it was as we was trying to do, and that is with lighting. And I have a lighting specialist with us, and Doug is going to introduce himself. He's going to tell. He's been in several major publications. He's well known around the country, and we are very fortunate to have him here with us today. And Doug, please introduce yourself. I'm afraid I might just embarrass you and say too much of the right thing.
Thank you, Troy. I'm happy to be with you today. I'm Doug Walter, an architect in Denver, Colorado. I'm not a full-time lighting designer, but it is a passion of mine, and I've taught courses on it for past 8 years. I've written about 15 articles because it's terribly important. Any designer, their work can rise or fall based on how well the space is lit. And most houses, even ones done by very good designers, are very poorly lit. And but there's some simple fixes, and I'd like to share those with you today.
Oh, that's awesome. I look forward to that. And so because lighting happens to be, seems like, I'm just going to switch a little bit here. I just watched a wonderful documentary. And it was actually on Notre Dame and the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and they was talking about how the lighting and how it affected the ambiance of the place, and how it literally, from natural lighting and such, how it literally made you feel different and made you feel like, well, they of course it's a cathedral, but they was saying how it literally made them feel empowered, enlightened. So lighting is really much. We're kind of ignorant to it, so this is awesome. So I'm gonna let you jump right in there.
And mainly, I mean, the cathedrals were lit primarily through daylight through the stained glass windows, and they were very deliberately designed to lift and inspire. What's really interesting is some of these wonderful old churches and cathedrals we have are being lit by professional lighting designers today, and bringing out facets that people never saw because they were up in the shadows on the ceiling. But now with LEDs and things like that, we're able to highlight all sorts of architectural features. But I really don't want to talk about cathedrals. I want to talk about lighting homes. That's where we're at.
Right. Well, and I just was using that as an example of just how long that concept has been around. So absolutely. And we're not building any more cathedrals. We're rebuilding them. But anyway, let's jump in there, Doug.
All right. Do you mind if I share some slides with you?
Please do.
Lighting lessons learned. A colleague of mine in Portland, Robin Rigsby Fisher, says that lighting is the most important part of a kitchen design. It's not just the kitchen, but the kitchen is the most critical lighting environment in the house. And we talk a lot about how much light, the quantity of light, but equally important is the quality of light. And that is measured by two metrics. One is the color temperature, and it runs from 1,000 to 10,000. 10,000 is like a very bright daylight, and 1,000 is like candlelight. Most of my projects we do in around a 3,000 Kelvin color temperature. That's very pleasant. But then there's another metric that's equally important, and that's the color rendering index, or CRI. The higher the CRI, the better the color rendering. You can see this graphically on this chart. Fortunately, more and more bulbs are coming out at 90 CRI. California has mandated that under Title 24. So the industry has kind of come along. Used to be 70 or 80 was kind of average, but now we're seeing a lot more 90 plus. So we need to pay attention not only to the quantity of light, which is measured by lumens, lumen output, but also by the CRI and the CCT, the correlated color temperature.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Well, I mean, I don't blame people being confused. This is just one section of a long aisle at Home Depot. And, you know, there's every kind of bulb. They still are even selling fluorescents, which are an obsolete technology. They're still selling halogens. But most bulbs that you want to buy are going to be LED. I'll tell you that right now. And the trouble, I think, with most home lighting is people don't understand what bulbs do. They think if I just put in a standard Edison A lamp into a can, that's good enough. But no, you need specific lamps or bulbs to get the effect you want.
So good. Yeah, and LEDs, that's a fairly new bulb. It's, a lot of folks are just now, at least in the Midwest, are just now starting to catch up with.
Yeah, they really started coming online commercially in a big way about 2012. But they are strong in the market. That's pretty much the only game in town. This was part of an article I wrote on LEDs, and starting with the traditional halogen or incandescent A lamp, those terrible CFLs that we all remember.
Oh, yeah.
Then something called the reflector lamp, which I have pictured on that left slide, that bulge. It's BR stands, or R stands for bulge reflector. And then something, my favorite lamp of all is called a PAR. It stands for parabolic aluminized reflector, because it's a more directed light. And you can see on that chart on the right of the difference between a wide flood, a very wide flood, and typically I don't even do floods. I try to do narrow floods. It's my favorite bulb is a narrow flood, because part of comfort with lighting is not experiencing glare. And if it's a widespread beam, you're going to be standing across the room getting light into your eyes. So the tighter the beam, the better, because we want the light to come down and not out for the most part.
That makes sense. I never thought of that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So beam spread is something you need to pay attention to. And it used to be, you know, when we only had incandescence or even fluorescence, we thought about lights in terms of watts, and then watts became irrelevant because LEDs basically are 5 times as efficient as an incandescent bulb, and so the government wants you to think about lumens, lumen output. But most of us in the industry really don't pay attention too much to lumens. What we really care about are delivered foot candles, and that's a measurement of light at the surface you're trying to light.
Right.
It's a very simple metric. It's very easy to measure. Now I'll show you how.
Oh, great. Great.
So most good lights and bulbs have photometric charts that you can find, you can look up. And that tells you how much light, how many foot candles it's going to put down based on how far you are away from the bulb itself or the fixture. And so you can see in this chart on the right, at 5.5 feet, I've got 147 foot candles, and that's directly under the light in the center. The width of the beam spread is 2.2 feet for this particular fixture. And that helps you when you're planning your lighting layout, because you want to space them about that far apart. You don't want to space them too much further. Otherwise, you'll have light and dark spots. So this is a way you can predict the performance of the light before you go installing it. Does that make sense?
It does makes a ton of sense, and I'm thinking of interior decorators and how often that they're guessing at this. So this chart would be a great help for them.
That is a big point that you brought up, Troy. Most designers are guessing. They're just saying, yeah, that looks good. I think that's enough. But unless you're measuring it, you're just guessing. So I just want to introduce a few words, a few definitions here. Lumens is the light output at the fixture, but foot candles is the light on the surface, whether that surface is a couch or a kitchen countertop or a bathroom vanity. We already talked about the CRI, the color rendering index, and the higher the better. And we talked about color temperature, because that has you get a very different effect from a 2700 Kelvin bulb, which is a very warm, relaxing color, versus a 5000, which is almost blue. It's almost daylight. And then beam spread, I showed you the chart of that. And then lamp type, of course, is the shape and the beam spread and things. Cost is kind of irrelevant anymore. Even back in 2015, I did an article comparing LEDs and halogens. And at the time, LEDs were like $25 a piece and the halogens were $2 and some cents. But even with that cost differential, they paid for themselves in like 10 months in energy savings. And then not only energy savings, it's over the lifespan of the bulb, the halogens you're replacing at least once every 2 years, whereas the LEDs are rated for a minimum of 22 years. So a lot less capital cost for bulbs.
Talking about longevity, I literally have put some lights underneath my house. I have a home on the river, and so I keep it lit 24/7.
Oh, do you?
And them light bulbs have literally been on for over 5 years, 24/7.
Are they fluorescent or LED?
LED.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm bragging about what you're saying. It's worked for
us.
us.
Well, I'm anxious to check with you in 5 years from now and see how they're doing.
Me too, because I'm not turning them off until they burn out.
You.
And
good for you.
But that really was. But we'll talk about that on another show. But anyway, that's great information right there. Thank you.
Yeah, and some LEDs, particularly if you're buying a fixture with the LED built in, have a lifespan of 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so this is something that I like to do when I'm doing projects for seniors. I make sure we change out all their lights to LEDs because I don't want them up on ladders.
We don't want to go up there either anymore.
I don't want to go up there either. You're right.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting topic. When I present this information to kitchen designers or interior designers, they say, oh, you're going to get, if you put the lights too close to the upper cabinets, you're going to get scallops on the cabinets. So this is just an illustration at a client's house where I had the client up on a ladder holding one of those awful LED disc lights that are so popular now. You see it on the left, and see where all the light is? It's up in about the top 2 feet of the upper cabinet. Almost nothing is reaching the counter. So it may have a high lumen output, but the lumens are just wasted. Now, a typical 40-degree flood, you can see is spreading light down across the face of the upper cabinet, but a pretty decent illumination at the counter. And then you go down to a spot, which is a 25-degree light, and you can see how much more light is coming to the countertop. And then you see the scalloping on the upper cabinet is much lower than the one on the left.
It's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, so it's quite a difference. And obviously, you're casting shadow under the upper cabinets, but that's why you need under cabinet lighting as well to fill in the back of that countertop.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know.
So this is why This is why you need good lighting in a kitchen. It's the only room that you're really doing some very critical tasks with sharp objects, and you want to be safe, and you can't be safe unless you can see what you're doing.
Especially when you get older.
That's a good intro, Troy. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Wonder what he's making.
I don't know, but it looks good.
So let me just illustrate what we've been talking about. I think that makes it a little bit easier to understand.
Okay.
So this one, the lights were in the right place, but they used the wrong bulb. So here is the original kitchen on the left. It's a bungalow kitchen. It had one single light in the center of the room, and I don't know if you'll believe it, but the current IRC only requires one light in a kitchen.
That's right.
So if you're doing things to code, that's woefully inadequate. They had added some fluorescent under cabinets. We came in with a lighting plan you see on the lower right there, where I have some can lights that are well centered on a countertop. We kept the overhead light as just a separately switched ambient light. So the project was done. I went over about 2 months later, and the picture on the left is what I saw. It was a very unpleasant, glary light. I was standing in the dining room getting glare. So something was very wrong there. And I pulled out a bulb, and sure enough, the electrician had cheaped out and bought some BR bulbs. Those bulge reflector bulbs are so popular and so cheap. And I measured the foot candles on the countertop with my phone, which you see there to the left of the cutting board, and was putting down 15.4 foot candles.
Now, is that an app that you got on your phone?
Yeah, and I'll show you the app.
Okay.
You can put them on any smartphone. Most of them are free too, so that's great. I went out to my car. I got a par 30 narrow flood, screwed it in, and I got 10 times the light out of it. I got 158 foot candles. And not only did I get more light on the surface, it was a better quality light. You can see the greens are richer, the whites are whiter, a much better end result. So the client obviously went out and got himself some nice narrow flood pars. Now, you might ask, how much is 158 foot candles? Is that too much? It's really not too much, because the very minimum that NKBA and Illuminating Engineering Society recommend are 50 foot candles, and that's for a young person. For seniors, they want you to do double that, 100. And I'll tell you from personal experience, most of my senior clients are much happier above 100, like 125 to 150. But it doesn't matter. You have a dimmer on all your switches so that you can put it at whatever level you want. Because even different times of the day, you might have a different requirement, less light or more light. First thing in the morning, you might not want to blast yourself.
Yeah. Now, does this foot candles, this 158, does this like a blue light spectrum, or does it make a difference, or is this part of any of that, or is it just a regular spectrum light?
The spectral power distribution of the bulb, that's a separate chart. Okay. And each bulbs have kind of a different graph of their spectral power distribution. As a matter of fact, that's a part of an advanced course that we could talk about, which is human-centric lighting or circadian lighting.
Right.
Where certain manufacturers are manipulating certain wavelength of the blue, and it's particularly around the 480 nanometer range, which happens to be the range that stimulates cortisol in the morning, and it sets our circadian rhythm. So there are manufacturers who are deliberately messing with that to give you a certain effect. And ideally, and the way that the whole industry is going, I think, is that eventually all fixtures and all bulbs will be able to come in an adjustable spectral power distribution, where you might start out the morning at 3,000 and go up to 5,000 or 6,000, and then in the afternoon ramp it down to 4, and then back all the way down to 2,700 or 2,000 to get you ready for bedtime.
Especially for us who live in areas where it gets darker for long periods of time, we're hunkered down in for the winter time. Well, you're Colorado. You definitely know what I'm talking about there.
Well, we have tremendous sunlight. We're very lucky that way. But it's very important. There's no light bulb made that has the same output in terms of the spectral power distribution as sunlight and daylight. And that's why it's important for people to get outside in the morning and take advantage of that. Get some of that blue light on their retina.
Yeah. So I know we'll have to do another one on that. I'm sorry for sidetracking you. It's just
no, that's quite all right.
It was actually one of the questions that was asked me to ask you, and when I was actually coming to the show today. So
yeah.
So I made my friend Don happy. So we're good. We move on.
Okay. Well, the problem we have is us. We all have very different vision. Over 12% of Americans have severe vision loss. That's a very large percentage.
That's a lot.
I don't know anybody who doesn't wear glasses. That's one, but then your eyes start to deteriorate as you get older. And part of the reason we're seeing this is that life expectancy is so long compared to 100 years or 200 years ago.
Oh, I love the girl smoking a cigarette off the 100-year candle. That's a perfect.
That's a great picture.
Oh, we're going to hear some complaining about that one.
That's the secret to her longevity, apparently.
Yeah, and probably a glass of wine.
Now, the trouble with getting older, among other things, is that the lenses get thicker and they get yellower. And these are actual lenses from cadavers, from a 6-month-old to a 91-year-old. And you can see how the lenses start to yellow and then they even turn brown. And you can imagine what that does to the quantity of light that it's letting through. And compounding this is the lenses get thicker and the pupils get narrower the older you get. So really a whole bunch of things conspiring to make it harder for seniors to see. And this is not even including things like glaucoma or cataracts or macular degeneration and diseases of the eye. This is just basic vision with someone who doesn't have any other eye disease. Now, the good news is, and this was a study done in England back in the 70s, one statistic that you'll hear, and it's true, is that 60-year-old only sees about a third as well as a 20-year-old. But what they've shown is if they increase the level of illumination, they can bring that senior's visual acuity almost equal to the young person's.
It's good to know.
That's very good to know. I mean, this is very important. Now, you need to increase the levels of light, but you need to very much control glare. Remember, we talked about how the bulged reflector bulbs put light out in too wide a beam spread, and it can get in your eye. Ideally, the best lighting scheme, you only see what's lit, you don't see the lights. You may see the aperture for the light, but you won't see the light bulb. Does that make sense?
It does. Now that you said it, I never thought of that, but it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's why, when you see a chandelier in a dining room and that's the only light or something, and it's got no cover on it, it's just bare candelabra bulbs, and they've got it cranked way up so you can see the table, you're also getting tremendous amounts of glare in your eyes, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So ideally, we would do that same chandelier, but we'd put shades on it, probably. We'd put on a separate switch, and we would have dimming ability on it. And then we would add some adjustable cans on either side of that chandelier, shining down on the tabletop. And that way, I can make the tabletop, all the silver and china and everything look great. And then the chandelier is there more for ambience. Oh. And I'll show you an example of that in a little bit.
Okay.
So in terms of kitchens, both NKBA and IES say that a recessed light should not be directly over your head or behind the head. And this is common sense, but believe it or not, they've been teaching it differently for the past 3 decades.
Yeah, they have.
So I did some field research, continue to do that. I've got a lighting kit with all sorts of can lights and bulbs. And this was one we did at a client's house while we were remodeling. Just trying out different bulbs at different distances from the countertop. And you can see the placement on that particular light is hitting basically the top of her head, and it's putting the light meter, which is right in front of her, in shadow. So this is kind of the latest thinking in lighting layout, and that's to put the cans anywhere from 6 to 12 inches in front of the face of the upper cabinets, and space them apart about the diameter of the beam. So on that earlier fixture, I showed you a photometric chart. It had like a 2-foot beam. I would put the cans 2 feet apart. In this case, the beam spread was about 3 feet.
Oh, that is great information.
So we talked about how to measure it. So if you want to be fancy, you can buy a light meter. This was one I picked off of Amazon for $20. I've got 3 light meters. The first one I bought probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago was $200. So they've come way, way down in cost. But here's the good news. You don't even need to buy a light meter. You can buy or put free light meter apps on your phone. Because you carry your phone with you every day. You don't carry your light meter every day. So 9 times out of 10, when I'm measuring a job, it's with my light meter app. I use Light Meter Companion and Light Meter Pro because I have an Android. They work very well, and I've calibrated against real light meters, and they agree very nicely.
Oh,
so
good.
Your camera is acting as a light meter.
I love it.
So there's no excuse for not being able to measure the delivered light on your project.
Yeah, actually, you just took away all my excuses why my wife's complaining to me about something that she has, and actually, it's not just her, but how in the kitchen, what you've been talking about, how poor lighting, and I did it exactly as I was taught, and it's hard.
Oh,
it's sad.
It is sad, and I've gone into even fairly recently done kitchens where the lighting was done wrong, and there's no easy fix for it. I will show you. I have a couple more examples if we have time. I'd love to show you.
Yeah, we got time. Yeah, please do.
Good.
Please do. Please do.
All right, so let's go to this case study. This was a client who wrote to me. She lives in Maryland. I never have seen the house, but we just corresponded through email. And this was her kitchen. Very pretty looking kitchen, nice cherry cabinets, a granite countertop, 3 recessed cans, 3 hanging lights, and then a funky little wavy track over in the middle of nowhere. And what she asked me, she told me that when she had to do serious cooking, she would do all that cooking in the morning when the light came in through those windows, because at night she didn't have enough light. So I had her put a light meter app on her phone and send me a sketch of her kitchen, which I turned into this CAD drawing. And where the X's are is where we measured the foot candles. So at the sink, she had 23 foot candles, which is okay. It's not great. Most of her counters were anywhere from 11 to 20 foot candles. There was one spot where it was 41. But you can see where the cans are sitting. They're about 3 feet plus off the wall, so they're nowhere near the countertops. So if she's standing there at the counter, she would then block whatever light she was getting. And so I asked her, where do you have enough light to see? And she sent me this picture of her sewing setup. The sewing machine put out 55 foot candles, but she added a desk lamp, and that brought the total up to 270 foot candles. And you can see, I could tell from that she really needed some help with her lighting, because this is what was comfortable for her. So I did a lighting layout, did 4 of them. This was the last one I sent her, where the lights are all either on or right on the edge of the countertop, except at the refrigerator and the oven where I'm washing the face of those appliances. I also added 3 cans at the sink to really give her some working light. It's on a separate circuit from the pendants, so the pendants could be turned on a little bit dimmer, and then she could get her actual working light from the cans. So fortunately, her brother is an electrician who helped her, and he chose this fixture, which is a dedicated LED. And in other words, the LED is built in. They were only 3 inches diameter, and he went out on my suggestion and bought one, wired it up, and then tried it in the space to make sure it would work. But anyway, this is just the can lights. Without under cabinet lights, we were getting 79 to 118 foot candles, which is great. But then we added under cabinet lights, and we didn't just add 1 row of under cabinet lights, we did a double channel and put 2 rows of under cabinet lights. And now we have a range of 115 to 182 foot candles on her countertops, which is more than enough. And I asked her if she ran them full strength, and she said usually she dims them about 10%.
Well, and she has the ability to, when her eyes get older, she could even beef them up. She's already
Well,
dimming them.
exactly.
That's perfect.
Exactly. So this is the after kitchen, and she was quite happy with that.
Yeah, I could see there's a huge difference if you're looking at the countertop like that.
Yeah, the countertop especially, and the cabinets look that much better because I'm washing the face of them with good light, good quality light.
Looks very beautiful.
So this was a fun one I just did a few months ago. This was a builder home, about 10 years old, I think. And this was the kitchen. It had a nice vaulted ceiling. It had basically 3 6-inch cans with the BR30 floods or BR38, I'm not sure which. But it was really kind of a murky quality of light. And then the breakfast room, which is adjacent to it, had 1 single hanging chandelier, so it was kind of a little bit dark. So here's a new layout I did. We changed the location of the downlights in the kitchen. We did under cabinet lighting. We also did over cabinet lighting. And then in the breakfast room, we kept a chandelier, but we added some spotlights on either side of it, like we had talked about on dining rooms, to help light the tabletop. And then I added 5 more cans around the room to help light the walls. And that's a very important thing. You don't want to just light the surface. You want to try to light the room, which usually means putting light on the walls and bouncing light off the walls. It makes a much more comfortable visual environment. Anyway, here's the proposed lighting scheme. This is the before and after side by side.
Oh, wow.
So the original light levels on the countertops were 18 foot candles, and now they average 126.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's primarily the downlights. The under cabinet lights are helping, but the workhorses of the kitchen are those downlights. But notice we also added some LED tape on top of the cabinets to do some nice indirect lighting, which helped emphasize the height of the ceiling. And then to further emphasize it, we added that faux beam up there.
That really made a big difference. It's beautiful.
Yeah, this was the client. I just had dinner with him a couple of nights ago. He said the biggest bang for the buck he did in his whole remodel was changing lighting in the kitchen.
I'm watching these guys. We work with a lot of these people doing home flipping. If they could only know or learn, I'm going to be sending this video to them to show to them, because if they knew how to do this, look what they could do to selling their product and maybe even selling it at a higher price.
But it really totally transformed this kitchen. It looks like a brand new kitchen.
It did. I could just see that I could see the bang or the bounce or the pop whenever they walk in and see this. I could see how come people walk away wanting to buy a house that had this kind of lighting.
What's interesting, they told me the other night, is that neighbors come in who have the same house and just trying to figure out what they did that made it look so good.
Or maybe you're going that direction with offices too. I'm thinking of
Yes.
my office and how I complain about the lighting. And now I'm seeing that there's options and maybe things I could think about to help my own
Yeah,
self.
there are many, many options, Troy. I'm going to talk about a few more of them, but this is the same project, and this is that breakfast room, and this is the plan I did for relighting the breakfast room. Remember, it just had a chandelier over the table.
Right.
And this is the before, and this is the after.
Oh, wow. And you got rid of them antlers too, huh?
Got rid of the antlers. It's a little bit trite. Those weren't even real antlers. They're just plastic castings. But you can see how lighting the walls just makes the room feel larger, warmer, and obviously everything's on a dimmer, so they can, in this case, they have 3 circuits of lighting. They have the chandelier, they have the 2 lights over the table, which in this picture are turned off. Then they have the wall washers. So another kind of lighting that's really effective, particularly for older eyes, because it's so comfortable, is indirect lighting. And you talk about an office lighting, that would be a really nice light for an office. So here was a garage we turned into an ADU for parents of a client. Made a nice living area on one floor with a loft that they can go to as well. And we use these faux beams overhead for the down lighting, and then we have under cabinet lighting, in cabinet lighting. But then on top of the beams, I've got some indirect up lighting. And again, everything's on separate circuits, so you can really play with the lighting mood here.
Wow. Yeah. That you would have never known.
And this is the view looking the other direction on the left. You can see how the nice quality of light just bouncing off that ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a tall ceiling, it's nice to emphasize it.
Well, you're
And of
paying
course,
extra for it, so you should.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing you're not paying for is daylight, and that's why I like to do a lot of skylights and windows to bring that in. Because ideally, you shouldn't have to turn on a light in any room in the house during the day.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
This is kind of a very showy before and after from a friend in Indianapolis, Adam Gibson. This is the same space, same view before and after. And not only did he do a ton of little, I think they're 3-inch downlights, he did all sorts of toe lighting on the toe kicks. He did lighting on the shelves. He did lighting on this floating soffit over the big island. Really kind of spectacular.
Yeah.
So you can go as far as you want or as far as your budget allows. Another place that indirect lighting is really good is for bedrooms. This was a huge bedroom on the 70s house that we remodeled. And when we got into it, we realized that the roof framing was very inadequate. So we had to beef up the roof framing. And I said, well, since we're beefing up the roof framing, let's take advantage of some of that unused attic space, and let's create a ceiling coffer, a tray. And then we did some LED tape uplighting there that's on a dimmer, and several strategically placed downlights. So that's a really nice way to light a bedroom, because you don't want too many lights, and you certainly don't want lights in your eyes in a bedroom.
No.
And this I think is the last case study I want to share with you. This I did this year for a friend of mine who's an architect. And he had track lighting and some big honking down lighting in certain places. We got rid of all that and did small adjustable downlights. And these actually were sort of the kind of disc lights that I hate. But in this application, they were perfect, because all I'm trying to do is shine light about 3 feet away and hit the art on the walls. So all these lights are against the, within 2 feet of the wall, except you notice the couch before and after, we added a downlight over the couch, and that is not one of those disc light. It's a true downlight, so that they can read while they're sitting on the couch. And I have a view looking the other way here.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see the difference that made? We also added, I think, one extra can in the hallway, which made a big difference. And then another view is just a stairway, and it's basically one light to light that art piece on the left, but it also put a tremendous amount more light down on this stair, which is a very important thing for safety, because next to bathrooms, stairways are the place where most people fall when they fall in a house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is great. And you could just, that picture really does emphasize from the very beginning of that lighting on that stairway.
Yeah,
And you can see them steps. And we
yeah.
do a lot of construction trip and falls or expert witnessing for just
Oh,
the people hurting themselves. And of
yes.
course, you know, you can't sue somebody because they don't have the proper light. But on the same token, this is something for businesses to be thinking about because they
Well,
could
I
be
mean,
sued.
you could sue somebody if it's a commercial job, because there are standards for light on stairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the topics I've been working. I'm on a technical committee for the Illuminating Engineering Society, and we've been talking about changing the standards on lights on stairs, exit stairs in particular.
Oh, I'd love to do a show on that sometime.
But equally important is to have a good, solid, continuous handrail, and I prefer to do two, particularly if it's a home for seniors.
Mm-hmm.
You can't protect people from themselves, and if someone is uh, maybe dizzy from drugs or drinking or something like that, there's nothing you can do to prevent the fall, but you do everything you can to make it safer for them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think, what I want to end up with is that lighting is both an art and a science. It's not one or the other. I mean, some people, particularly some people who teach lighting, it's all about the science and then running the numbers and doing the calcs. And the opposite end, the spectrum, you have designers who say, I don't need to calc it. I just know what looks right. But I really want to encourage people to be their own lighting designer. And that's really by, being your own guinea pig and just trying things and see what works. And especially if you're a designer, I'd like you to experiment on your own home so that you know what you're talking about when you go out to a client's house.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is pretty much all I got for you, Troy.
Well,
Any questions come up as we talked about this?
well, I got some questions, but I think the first and the biggest one is because we're going to really blast to this show. It's something that for the last, well, I've only been in the building industry for about 45 years, but it's been something that's always been brought to our attention. And especially when we started getting this can lights, and it just seemed like nobody had any answers to it. It was just guessing. And we would sometimes go super stupid crazy with the cans, or sometimes we would sparingly or put them in the wrong spots. And they just never know. And this is the first time that I've ever been able to talk to somebody to get that can teach us. And it's just, you said it's a science. Absolutely, it's a science. But wow. In my world,
Yeah,
it's an work
Troy,
of art. It's beautiful what you do with the lighting.
there's definitely art in it, but the problem with a lot of lighting design is a lot of it came out of commercial, and commercial will say we need 30 foot candles on every square foot of the space minimum, right? So they end up with a grid of fluorescent lights or downlights, so your ceiling looks like Swiss cheese, but you don't need the same illumination everywhere. You need it where you're doing the work or where you're sitting. You need it to light the walls. So often when you design your lighting properly, you're using way less lights than you would have otherwise under the old rules of thumb.
Well, now this is your email address. This is a great way for people to reach out to
Sure,
and ask you questions and
absolutely.
oh, that's fabulous. And would you please share with us real quick before we wrap this up how you said, I think I heard you say that you have other publications and you also have newsletters or something or different ways that we can
Well,
stay involved in the.
yeah, mainly articles. I've written 12 or 15 for ProRemodeler.com, Pro Remodeling Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look up there, you'll find articles going back to 2015. That's primarily where I've been published. I'm trying to write some for some other publications right now because we need to get the word out more widely. I'll tell you, when you Google kitchen lighting or how to lay out kitchen lighting, you're going to get some absolutely wrong plans of how to lay out the lighting. It's appalling. And this is what I'm trying to fight is the lights have to be where you're doing the work. They can't be out in the middle of the room. And for the past 30 years, they've been teaching the lights shouldn't be anywhere near the upper cabinets because they'll create hot spots on the upper cabinets. Well, that's so what? I mean, you've paid $50,000-$70,000 for those cabinets. It'd be nice to see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And particularly to see the work that you're doing on the countertop, and you can't do it unless the light is directly overhead. I mean, it's such common sense. Every time I describe to people this concept who are not in the industry or something, they say, well, of course, it makes perfect sense. But, I still see articles out there that, and pictures of kitchens where the lights are floating all over the space, any place except where they need to be.
Now, how you said you like to teach more of it. How can somebody get, other than reading your publications, is there other opportunities for us to follow what you're teaching? Or is any?
Yeah. I teach probably at least once a month somewhere. This obviously is what I'm doing this month, but I teach a lot for the National Kitchen and Bath Association, NKBA. I do at least one webinar each May for them on lighting, and those are free. I teach at their conference down in Vegas this year in February, and I give programs to different chapters. I'm teaching one up in Seattle in October. But webinars are a good way to catch me. If you look on my website, which is dougwalterarchitects.com, I've got a list of upcoming speaking engagements, and
Awesome, great.
some of them you might be able to attend. And if it's a webinar that's I might be able to get a free invite to the person who writes me. Happy to do so.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I am going to just blast this because I just feel like this is one of the best shows that we've had because it's information that's just so hard to find. And I want to thank everybody from St. Louis out here that recommended us, from other architects to the ladies that was on the last show, Joy Construction, I believe, and they're the ones that recommended. They heard you speak, and so I want to thank them for what they've done and helping us. And thank you so much, Doug. I'm just like a kid in a candy store. If we had more time, I would pester you all the rest of the afternoon.
Well, Troy, I want you to promise me to put a light meter app on your phone.
Oh, it's going to be. I'm not even going to hardly get out of here. I bet you, Joey, my producer, he'll be putting one on too.
And I want you to measure your own kitchen, just several spots around your kitchen, and then send me an email and tell me what you register. Because, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a low number. I've got a client right now where I've got 5 foot candles on her countertop.
Oh,
we're going to fix that.
I got a feeling mine's even worse than that because our house is, it was just, the lighting was poorly designed, and and I was part of the problem. I didn't know any better. The architect didn't know any better, and so we just kind of used the old hat, and it's sad. But I will definitely.
Well, I mean, I'm all about ideas that you can implement and real world solutions, and you may be able to just change out the bulb. I changed out. You saw the first case study I showed you, where I got 10 times the delivered light out of the PAR 30s than I was getting out of the BR 30s. I did another one like that where I got 20 times the light. They had just bought some new LED BR 30s. He was very proud of that. And I said, it looks kind of muddy over there. I measured it, and he had, I think, 12 foot candles. And I went out to my car and I got some PAR 30, and I was getting something like 200 foot candles. I mean, just unbelievable difference.
Wow, that's really great. Well, thank you so much, Doug.
You're quite welcome, Troy.
I so much appreciate this, and I've been telling everybody about it. So this show's been, a lot of people are waiting for it to come out. So as soon as it
Good.
does, we're going to be blasting it, and you're liable to get pestered. So forgive us for that, but we thank you very much for helping us. This
Oh,
is
you're
good
quite welcome, Troy.
information.
It's been my pleasure.
Yes, sir. Well, you have a blessed day, and thank you. And we will try to do another show for new
Okay,
other information.
look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Sponsored by Troy Galloway and Galloway Building Services. GallowayBuildingServices.com.